since NASA campaigned in Uasin Gishu and seemingly endorsed the incumbent governor for a second term, Jackson Mandago. What are your thoughts, Dismas, on that endorsement and Jubilee going back to Uasin Gishu almost immediately after NASA endorsed Mandago?
Well, it seems to be the case that the Kenyan politics is beginning to change. And the Kenyan voter is beginning to ask himself questions that who between Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta represents my interests. Because to have the NASA side endorse Mandago, who is in Jubilee, and then in a few minutes, you have Mandago endorsing an ODM candidate
MCA,
here, an MCA. It speaks a lot that people are beginning to say, wait a minute, this election has got nothing to do with President Kenyatta or Mr. Raila Odinga, but it's about my selfish interest. And I think moving forward, we'll be able, maybe in the next election and other elections, people will start voting leaders based on their leadership skills or potential instead of going back to the tribal enclaves. Because right now, the tragedy we have in Kenya is that as a nation, we are being held hostage by the political leaders. That if somebody comes from your tribe, you want to vote for him, never mind that he's not performed or he has no potential of delivering in the future. So you just want to vote for him because you come from the same village. But I'm hoping that whatever is happening today in Uasin Gishu is going to lead us in the right direction.
Yeah. But there have been conversations that what really was NASA's game plan in endorsing Mandago. This is something we don't see very often in our political space of a particular team endorsing someone from their rival group. Well, who gains from all this?
You see, after the Jubilee Party primaries, Mandago has come out as a force to reckon with in the Rift Valley political space. He commands a lot of power. You recall during the Jubilee Party primaries, where there was a crisis, somebody wanted to snatch him victory, and people were demonstrating in the streets. There was a huge crowd. But when he got to the middle of the town, and at the flick of his fingers, everybody sat on the tarmac. So people began to realize that, in fact, he's got a lot of power. And I suspect Jubilee want to get a portion of that vote. That the people who love Mandago, whether he's in Jubilee or not, or whether he ran as an independent or not, who are going to vote for Mandago, they may actually vote for NASA. And you recall a few days ago, Mandago said that there are some people from the office of the deputy president who keep on intimidating him. If they're not very careful, he's going to speak with them so that they cast their ballots in favor of another candidate. And people interpreted the other candidate to be Raila Odinga.
Raila Odinga.
Yeah, so it seems that it's a mutually beneficial relationship. That I'm going to, or rather that NASA is going to endorse Mandago, and hoping that they're going to get votes from Mandago's base, which serves the president, or rather which works for the interest of Raila Odinga.
Knowing how much support base Jubilee has in Uasin Gishu, this has been said to be the heart of Deputy President William Ruto. Counties like Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, you name it, in the Rift Valley. Will NASA get any substantial votes from this particular act of endorsing Mandago, and Mandago seemingly making threats that he will jump to the other side if ABCD is not done?
It's beginning to emerge that we've got two kinds of voters within the Rift Valley. You have the emotional or irrational voters that are people are going to vote for Jubilee. It doesn't matter whether rain or shine. And then there's a small crop of rational voters who are beginning to listen to the deputy president and also listening to the NASA leadership. And the biggest asset or the biggest opportunity for NASA has been the entry of Governor Isaac Ruto. Yeah. And you recall during the last meeting in Uasin Gishu, he said I was born and brought up here. So I'm actually part of this family. I only went to the other side because of my heritage. But I'm part of this leadership. So there's a very high probability that NASA is going to secure a number of votes because of what Mandago is saying. Because people are beginning to say, I mean, we are going to elect Mandago, but if Mandago doesn't have issues with NASA, we may as well think about them. And you know, the moment a politician or rather voters start asking themselves question, what do we have to lose if we vote for NASA? Then it means that somebody is creating doubt in their mind, and when they go to the ballot paper, they may actually vote for NASA. That's number one. Number two, I was in Eldoret not long ago. There are some people who've got the fear of the deputy president. While they support NASA, they cannot come out in the open and say that I'm going to be voting for NASA. Yeah, so and there are a number of guys who are saying that they're going to be expressing themselves during, during when they go to the ballot in the privacy of the voting booth. They'll be able to make their decision. And I'll not be surprised if NASA gets a number of substantial votes from Rift Valley province.
But looking at how NASA endorsed Mandago and how Mandago and Oscar Sudi endorsed the MCA from the opposition, does this spell that there's seemingly growth in our politics now?
Yeah, it is. It's. I think now there's that political maturity because people are beginning to say that while I'm in Jubilee, I must not necessarily support somebody from Jubilee. If there's another candidate who is maybe running as an independent or from another political party, in this case ODM, and is going to support our cause and is going to deliver solid leadership, there's nothing wrong in supporting him. But obviously for Mandago, he's looking at numbers. He's looking at endorsing somebody from ODM so that he can get people aligned to NASA to support him. So it may be really nothing to do with the strong leadership skill by the guy who is running for MCA, but he's just looking at numbers. And I understand from the latest figures from IBC that it is about 110,000 registered voters who are not necessarily from the Jubilee communities. And you know, Jubilee is largely made up of the Kikuyu community and the Kalenjin community. So when you've got about 110,000 votes that Buzeki was banking on, you recall Buzeki is running as an independent.
Yes.
And he was hoping that anybody who supports NASA would actually be voting for him. And the endorsement from NASA leadership has, has upset the equation. So these guys now, instead of saying they're going to vote for Buzeki, they're likely to vote for Mandago. And again, you know, there's the threat of having violence during the election. And the people would feel more comfortable with the Mandago leadership because he's been in office and he's got a strong influence over the community, that if you have him as a leader, then they seem to suggest that everything is going to be safe with Mandago.
What does this all mean for Deputy President William Ruto, who definitely has ambitions in 2022, but he's banking on the turnout in various counties, especially in the Rift Valley, to stamp his foot down as still the kingpin of Rift Valley region?
Yeah, before the entry of Mandago, people assumed that Rift Valley has got only two champions. That is the Deputy President, Deputy President Ruto and Governor Isaac Ruto. But Mandago now has just literally crawled from the woodwork from nowhere, because he's only been in politics for just under 5 years, but he's got a lot of force. Now, if the Deputy President wants to run for president in 2022, then he has to accept the reality that the fundamentals have changed, and he has to sit down with Governor Isaac Ruto, whether or not he wins, and then he has to sit down with Governor Mandago and cut a deal with him. So he's not going to come to the political space and say that I'm the only leader from this community. There'll be so many people to play around with, and obviously that reduces his political capital. Because you see, if he was the only force from Rift Valley, then it would be easy when he goes to negotiate with other presidential candidates to say that I come with the Rift Valley intact. But this time round, people will tell him, wait a minute, there's Governor Isaac Ruto and then there's Governor Mandago. So if you want us to have a conversation, we also have to know what these guys are thinking of.
But if this doesn't happen, looking at the campaigns that we saw the other day from Jubilee in Bomet, there seems to be an onslaught in some specific counties like Bomet, like Uasin Gishu. Look at the coast and Kisii, the places that Jubilee keeps going and NASA keeps countering. Why are these places of such interest? Look at Kisii, look at the coast. We understand that Jubilee will be going back there this week. And look at Uasin Gishu, look at Bomet as well.
Now, the tragedy with the Jubilee politics today, they're actually doing two campaigns in one. They're campaigning for next week, and at the same time they're campaigning for 2022. Because when you look at Governor Isaac Ruto, if he manages to retain his position as the governor for Bomet, believe you me, 2022 is going to be a very strong force to reckon with. And the person who will be hurt most with Governor Ruto retaining his position is the Deputy President. Because you see now Governor Ruto would say, you are the Deputy President in the unlikely event, or maybe depending on the equations, depending on who becomes the president. But Governor Ruto will say, I'm here. And then also Governor Joe is getting some quite irrational support, because most of the people who support Governor Joe, when you ask them to give you a reason as to why they support Joe, they don't have a reason. But you know, there is that emotional connection. And then when you go to Kisii for some reason has been considered as a swing vote. That who is able to manage Kisii can actually tilt the balance. And Jubilee has done a lot of efforts. That's why you see all of them running to Kisii on a regular basis, hoping, especially for Jubilee, that they can actually grab the Kisii vote. That's Kisii County and Jamira from the NASA side, and you know, tilt it in the side of Jubilee. But at the end of the day, the Deputy President, when you look at his wish list, obviously, he does not want Governor Hassan Joe to win, because Governor Joe has also indicated that he's going to be a presidential candidate in 2022. And also Governor Isaac Ruto has indicated he's going to be a presidential candidate. So for those two, those are the campaigns for 2022 which are taking place today. And when you look at the deputy president, it seems to me that anybody who is going to be a force in 2022, he does not want to see him around the table. That's why the Jubilee party primaries were a bit flawed, because people accused him of using the party primaries for his selfish interest. And when you go to Kisii, I think for them it's a struggle to at least get 25% from the Kisii community to assist in the national tally.
All right, Dismas, thank you. I believe we'll be having you here once again this week as we analyze the state of the race. Jubilee being in Uasin Gishu today. Tomorrow they're expected in the coastal region of the country. Dismas Mukwa is a political risk analyst. Always a pleasure, Dismas, to have you here. Now,